Hi, how you going? My name is Sun. This is Sun and Mood Reads. Welcome back to my channel, or more likely, welcome to my channel. I've only ever done one video before this, so it is more likely that this is your first time. If you'd like to get a bit more of an idea of who I am, you can head back to my first video, my BookTube newbie tag, which is on my channel. You know, I learned quite a bit from watching my first video. I never realized how bloody slowly I talk. I really have that Aussie laid back thing happening. So today I am really going to try to pick up my energy. I've had two coffees. I'm ready to go. I am ready to go. Oh my God, I'm so tired. Sun and Mood Reads. So for this video, I thought I'd dive in a little bit more into my bookish life, and I thought I might do the getting to know me tag, except I'm going to do it a little bit differently in the sense that I'm not going to do any of the questions that are related to the getting to know me tag. I just noticed the questions were just about me as a person, just me. You know, what's my job? What's my hobby? Which is, you know, interesting, I guess, but I just want to talk about books. I want to talk about my favorite books, my least favorite books, just books in general. I don't really enjoy talking about myself, so I thought I'd just steal the title and not do any of the tag questions. So I would love to take this opportunity for you to get to know me through my books. Today, I would like to share with you my 5 favorite books ever. This took a very long time to decide because there are so many books I love, but eventually I was able to dwindle it down to 5 books. My next video, if I ever get it done, I'll be sharing my 2 least favorite books and one that I physically threw. Anyway, I'll explain that in the 3rd video, but today it's all about love. So without further ado, let's get into my 5 top books. Okay, so my first book, and I mentioned this in my newbie tag video, is of course the Harry Potter series. Now, am I cheating if I say the whole series rather than one book? Listen to me, I'm talking like I care. Anyway, the Harry Potter books was what got me into reading, and I'm sure there are many out there that are thinking the same thing. Oh yes, Harry Potter got me into reading as well when I was 10 years old. I was 25. So I was a latecomer to reading. What can I say about Harry Potter that hasn't been said before? From the first page, you are drawn into the world instantly. In fact, I mentioned this in my first video, but I have really tried to get my 6-year-old daughter into reading Harry Potter, and she would not budge until I showed her on the Pottermore website the sorting hat quiz, where it sorts you into your house. Now, she knew that Harry Potter was in the Gryffindor house. Lo and behold, when she did the sorting hat quiz, she was sorted into the Gryffindor house. Now, we're not really going to go into what house that I was sorted to. My daughter is the apple that has fallen from the tree. So as far as I'm concerned, I am Gryffindor. Anyway, due to the sorting hat quiz, my daughter decided to give Harry Potter a go, and she allowed me to read a few pages of Harry Potter. The reason I mention this story is because she said something and I thought it summarized exactly what Harry Potter is like for many people and for me. When I read the first few pages, my daughter stopped and she said, "Wow, I can really see the story in my head really clearly. It's like I'm there." And it was such a simple observation from a 6-year-old, but it's so true. You are totally swept into that world. You become invested in Harry Potter and the characters. The fact that his journey goes for years and years, you just can't help loving Harry Potter. Now, I don't believe it's the best writing, but that's what I kind of like about it. It really is like J.K. Rowling is sitting beside you in bed, just telling you the story as it is. There's no decoding of any literariness or any words or tones that sound more clever than it needs to be. It is just what it is, a fantastic life-affirming story about a boy who conquers evil. What more do you want? So the second book in my top 5, and I mentioned this one also in my newbie tag video, it is Jane Eyre. I don't know why, every time I try to describe how much I love Jane Eyre, words are very difficult. I'm always just going like this. But I know that's not enough. So for the sake of this video, I really thought about it and I really tried to articulate exactly what it is about Jane Eyre that I love so much. And I think it's this. You know how once in a blue moon when you read a book and you meet a certain character and you just stop and you just think, I know that person. I know her or I know him. That's the sensation I have when I read Jane Eyre. I feel like if I lived in that period with no family, no prospects, no creative or ambitious outlet of any kind, that would be me. Jane Eyre would be me. I do feel like we're kindred spirits. And I'm pretty sure no one has ever felt like that about Jane Eyre. I love Jane Eyre's battle and that eventual growth of her level of self-worth, how she feels awkward and plain and ugly and like no one would love her, to eventually discovering and realizing that, yeah, I'm worth being loved. And if it takes me escaping or eloping from some kind of bondage, it's worth it to claim that I am worthy. She is my hero. Plus, it's totally relatable because I would totally be into Mr. Rochester, 100%. Especially if you look like Michael Fassbender, which apparently, according to the film, he does. Whew. So Jane Eyre, I am not worthy. Oh, no, actually, I am worthy. That's exactly what the lesson is in that story, so. The third book in my top 5, and it has been years and years since I've read this, so forgive me if you have read it and I am not accurate in some details. It is The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. So I read this book when I was a teenager. I clearly remember that in the 12 years of schooling, The Joy Luck Club was literally the only book that I read for fun. It's a sweeping saga of a story about 4 Chinese immigrants, 4 women who moved to America, to San Francisco. It's a generational story about mother and daughter relationships. It's about the immigrant story. I guess what really got me were the mother-daughter relationships, how alike it was to my relationship with my mum. There weren't many books at that time which portrayed my experience as an Asian immigrant. So Joy Luck Club was the closest thing for me. You know, there was a melancholiness to it that I really understood. And I remember really being affected by how a lot of the things that they went through in this story, I was going through with my mother. There's that language barrier where you want to say so much more, but you can't. And I guess as a teenager, that's an issue anyway, communicating with your mum. But added onto that, the language barrier, and added onto that, all my own shit as a teenager and as an immigrant and as someone who didn't fit in, I found all those struggles in this book. So this story really assured me that it's okay what I was feeling and what I was going through. And it also made me realize that my mum hasn't been a mum all her life. She was a teenager. She was from another country. She's had struggles and she's overcome them. So it gave me a chance to look at my relationship with my mother in a much better light. By the way, interesting fact, The Joy Luck Club had a film in 1995 and it was the first known all-Asian cast film. So it seemed like the tide was turning for diverse casting at that time. But the next movie to feature an all-Asian cast happened 25 years later with, of course, Crazy Rich Asians. It took 25 years to have an all-Asian cast film again. Just saying. But it seems the tide turning is a little bit more hopeful this time around. Anyway, that is a whole other episode. Moving on. Okay, so the 4th book in my favourites is an Australian author. He's relatively new and this was his debut novel. It is called The Nowhere Child by Christian White. So it's a thriller, it's suspenseful, kind of in the tone of Stephen King, Gillian Flynn. So the story starts with a girl named Kim. She lives in Melbourne, Australia. She's a photography student. And one day during her break, a stranger approaches her and the stranger explains that there was a disappearance of a little girl 28 years ago in Kentucky, America. And the stranger believes that Kim is that little girl. And then the can of worms are opened. It is so good. It is everything that you want a thrilling, suspenseful story to be. I think I read this in a day and a half. I just couldn't put it down. I just could not put it down. I also really love any story that has anything to do with weird Christian extreme cults. I don't know what that says about me, but I find that so intriguing. So the minute that world was introduced, I was like, yep, I am going in. The reason I put Nowhere Child in my top 5, it's one of those books where I read it and then I was like, damn, seriously, why would anyone anyone want to put Netflix on when you have a book like this? I would recommend it to anyone. In fact, I have. I work at the local library, so I recommend books all the time. This is my go-to book because I know you would have to be a robot zombie. Robot zombie? Is there such a thing as a robot zombie? To not love this book. This book is hands down my favorite read in the last couple of years. Now, number 5 in my favorites is a little bit of a surprise. It's a very small, unassuming book, but for me, it packed a punch. And that book is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. This is about, you guessed it, a convenience store woman. And the woman who wrote this book, Sayaka, still to this day works at a convenience store. Now you might be thinking, that sounds like a really mundane book, but you would be wrong. So this story is about Keiko, who is a 36-year-old woman who has been working at the same convenience store for many years. She's never moved on to another job. She's never wanted to be promoted to a higher position at the convenience store. She finds purpose and peace working at this store. But as you expect, the people around her, her family, her friends, all her external influences are totally against that notion. They refuse to believe that Keiko is truly happy within this job. And Keiko, for the most of the journey of the story, she tries to listen and kind of obey other people's suggestions. She tries to adhere to the social expectations that are put onto her. This book is so quirky, so deadpan, and for some reason it really challenged me. This story really put a mirror to my life, and I realized a lot of things after reading this. Even as I'm nearing 40, yes folks, I am nearly 40, and I'm bloody proud of it. I still struggle with being content with where I am. And I do occasionally judge other people by using this type of mundane radar. Sometimes I will walk into a convenience store, see someone working there who's a little bit older. Like, I don't know the person, but I do wonder, oh, what's their life like? Why are they working at a convenience store? My mundane radar goes off and it's like, oh, they mustn't have much of an exciting life. I am absolutely guilty of it, and this book made me change my way of thinking and basically stopped me from being a douche. Many people read this and they find it quite humorous in a dark kind of way. I cried reading this. That's how much it affected me. I read this a year and a half ago and I still can't stop thinking about it. So that is why Convenience Store Woman made the top 5. So they were my top 5 books. Let me know what you thought of my top 5. I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea of my bookish tastes and just who I am as a person. My next video, I will be sharing 2 books that weren't for me and one that I physically threw. I promise I didn't physically throw it out of malice or hatred really. You will know what I mean when you see my next video. Thank you so much for dropping in. My name is Sun. This is Sun and Mood Reads. Still not confident yet to say subscribe. Do what you will, and hopefully I will see you next time. Bye. Sun and Moon.